Okay, so right now we are awaiting a decision from President Trump on the ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and Iran. It could come at any moment. We're watching the White House carefully. This as a military advisor to Iran's supreme leader claims that President Trump is, quote, betraying diplomacy in these talks. Our foreign correspondent, Jeff Paul, is live in Dubai with the very latest. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Aisha, and yeah, we are learning today that according to a report that appeared in Bloomberg, several Americans were hurt in that recent missile strike that happened on a Kuwaiti airbase. This is the same strike that CENTCOM blames on Iran and one that they call an egregious ceasefire violation. Now, that strike in Kuwait happening shortly after U.S. forces intercepted and destroyed 5 one-way attack drones near the Strait of Hormuz and hit a facility that was about to launch a 6th drone. The back and forth between the U.S. and Iran occurring as we wait to hear anything from the White House regarding a potential deal. Now, the president was said to be making a final decision on that 60-day memorandum of understanding with Iran, but after a closed-door intelligence briefing yesterday, nothing has been announced so far. While speaking in Singapore today, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth didn't rule out a return to fighting.
Our ability to recommence if necessary is we are more than capable. Our stockpiles are more than suited for that, both there and around the globe, because of how we balance exquisite and more plentiful munitions. So we're in a very good place.
Now, Iran's parliament speaker seemingly responding by saying they seize concessions not through dialogue, but with missiles. He added Iran has no trust in guarantees or words, only actions are the measure. Residents in Tehran who gathered in support of their supreme leader also responded to President Trump's claim that the U.S. would unearth Iran's uranium and destroy it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I believe we made a mistake in 2015 when we handed over several tons of uranium. It was a very big mistake. Enriched uranium has a high material value, both spiritual and material. It is like the part of our soil. Why should we hand it over? It has nothing to do with him.
Now, President Trump also in that recent Truth Social post said that they would be lifting the U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. So far, it doesn't appear to be happening just yet. Aisha?
Okay, Jeff Paul live for us. Jeff, thank you very much.
I just want to remind everybody, Mr. President, you know this well, you have other options available to you if that doesn't work. But the bottom line is that we prefer the negotiated diplomatic route, and we're going to give it every chance to succeed.
Okay, they're going the diplomatic route for now. The Iranian foreign minister spokesperson has reportedly said that Iran is focused on ending the war, not negotiating over Iran's nuclear program. That's a big statement. For more, let's bring in former Deputy Special Envoy for the Middle East, Morgan Ortagus. Morgan, great to see you.
Thanks, Aisha. Great to see you.
How do you read this moment, Morgan? I mean, we're sort of in this waiting pattern. We're waiting for something from the president, maybe this weekend, on whether or not there's going to be this 60-day ceasefire, potential nuclear deal. But then we keep hearing things from the Iranians that don't match up with, our red lines.
Yeah, it's probably no surprise that for 47 years, the Islamic Republic of Iran, that regime doesn't always negotiate in good faith. And so you're not dealing with someone who's a rational actor at the end of war, right? If you think of like the end of World War II or major wars, whenever U.S. diplomats would negotiate the end of the war and 2 people sign it, you're dealing with somebody who cannot be bought off, right? I don't think that financial incentives are going to motivate this regime because at their core, they are a theocratic, revolutionary regime. Their dream is to take over the Middle East, to kill Israel, to kill the United States. And so you have to, it represents a very difficult challenge for the president's negotiators because they have to deal with people who are theocratic revolutionaries, not people that are normal, that care about their people. I mean, what do we know, Aisha, even over just the last few months, even over the time in the past few weeks when they cut off internet access to the regime? We're seeing more and more pictures, tens of thousands killed. We're seeing pictures of police brutality, of shooting protesters. So this is not a regime that cares about its people. They are a regime of terrorists. They're the world's leading state sponsor of terror. Saying all of that, Aisha, The president has done something that no other president has done, and he has given his negotiating team more leverage than any president could do. I mean, the amount of attacks that the president decided to pursue from a military perspective last June, stopping the nuclear program, until now, he has set back the nuclear program in a way in which nobody around the world really thought could happen. I mean, listen, even when you look at the JCPOA that the president criticized heavily, when you look at that deal, one of the reasons the president withdrew from it in his first term is because he knew ultimately it had all of the off-ramps to where Iran could actually get a nuclear weapon. And he has been determined since 2016, he has said unequivocally that Iran will never obtain a nuclear weapon on his watch. And I trust him and I trust his team that they're going to continue to ensure that doesn't happen.
I know there's people out there, and maybe the Israelis feel this way, that why not finish the job? You know, why not just go back to strikes? I mean, they've already decimated so much of the Iranian Navy and so many of their missile programs, and don't give them time to reload, so to speak. I know that sometimes you have to talk to bad people to get what you want, because that is the main mission, right? You want to get them to a point where they can never have a nuclear weapon. But does this negotiating and this diplomacy, does it change Iran's status in the region? Is there a concern that it legitimizes whoever the heck we're talking to, whoever makes up the regime now in Iran?
You know, President Trump campaigned on being a president of peace, and he is very smartly, I believe, he has always chosen the diplomatic path first. In the first year of the Trump administration, before we hit Iran in June, I was Steve Witkoff's deputy, and I was in the Situation Room many times with Steve and watched him and the president's team, Secretary Rubio, all talk about every option, every ability we could to make a peaceful deal. The president has never been trigger happy. Saying that, we did the attacks last year. We went into negotiations afterwards, before and afterwards. And of course, ultimately, the president decided earlier this year that he was going to have to pursue attacks again. So going into a 60-day negotiating period, I don't think necessarily negates the president's options. The president will always have an option to go back militarily if he can't get the deal that he needs with the regime. Now, what we really have to look for, Aisha, is Iran's support to the proxies. Hezbollah has these fiber optic drones. It's killing Israeli civilians. It could easily, and very scarily, could easily target U.S. embassies and bases in the region. So crucially, as the president's team is making sure that they do a deal that ensures that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, we also have to make sure that Israel has the freedom of movement and that we don't restrict ourselves from going after these proxies, which are the lifeblood of the regime in the region.
Well, the world is watching to see what the president decides to do, and I think Iran knows that if they don't make the right choice, then strikes will resume. Morgan Ortagus, great to have you on this program. Great to see you,
Thanks,
my friend.
Aisha. Thanks, Aisha.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.